welcome everybody. We're at Austinberry Racing Shop. We stopped in here today to check in with Austin because, as you may have noticed, they've been absent from the track for a couple of weeks. We wanted to get a little update, stop by and just chat with Austin so we can really kind of share with everybody what's been going on for you, not just the last couple of weeks, but really this year from hell, to be honest. It hadn't been fun.
It seems like the last couple of years. But.
Yeah, but it's just been a rough year, and just thought, hey, let's hear it right from Austin and share with everybody what's been going on so people understand, because it's way more than, hey, we blew up a motor and it's going to take a little while to get back, and that's all about most people know, right? But
yeah.
So,
I mean, most people probably really don't even know a whole bunch of that either.
Yeah.
When all this kind of happened, Rich and I talked, and we're like, man, you really can't even describe all this in a press release or a post or
Right.
A summary. So I mean, the last race down at Lincoln at Speed Week, we broke a motor. We broke a crank in our only super motor we have this year, and it's the only motor we have together. So unfortunately, time-wise, just funding, our budget for the year, we're not more than likely we're not going to have it put back together for this season.
Yeah, at this point of the year, with the number of super late model races left, even best case scenario, you get it back in a month. You still got to pay the bill, right? There's that too. So
yeah, I mean, that's Tom and I had talked, and he said, I could make some phone calls, probably get some stuff, and maybe 5-6 weeks have it together.
Yeah.
And, I'm all for that. Right. We wouldn't have rushed or did anything that wasn't smart, but
right.
We just got it. We just got it refreshed over the winter, and I don't have the money right now to pay for it.
Absolutely,
so, and I've talked with a lot of our sponsors and stuff, and kind of filled them in with what was going on, and the way we kind of work with a lot of our partners. Some give us financial support up front, some spread it out throughout the year, and I can't ask them to be helping me when we're not racing, and they've all been very supportive, and said we still want to stay involved for next year, and even hit us up at the end of the year when we do start getting that back together. Maybe if we can still help with some of what we were planning on this year, we will. But just right now we're still a family-owned operation.
Yeah.
We don't have an owner and someone pumping a bunch of money in.
Yeah, the budget is. I mean, these things are expensive. People know that. And they may not know exact numbers, but they know. Like you said, you're a family team. Yeah, you get a little bit of sponsorship dollars, but we're not talking about big bucks. And it's expensive. And every winter, even if things go normal, right? You're looking at what, $15,000 or something to rebuild a motor ish.
Yeah, plus or minus a couple thousand. Yeah.
Right, and then there's the expense of just showing up at the track every week, tires, fuel, and all the other parts. Obviously, I mean, I don't need to do a spreadsheet and do the math for people sitting here, but it's expensive, and for a team
we know that.
Yeah,
I mean, we know that doing it. And we choose to do it, so it's not
right.
It's not like we're complaining. It's
no.
But
when you get double whammied in the span of a few months, that's a hard hit to take, and it takes a little time to recover.
Yeah,
so
probably what makes it hurt even worse is we kind of took a step in our motor program to try and alleviate these problems, and it just I guess it's just my luck.
Yeah.
It's not working out right now.
So talk about that a little bit. So you mentioned Tom. For everybody's sake, that's Barron's Racing attendant Tom, who you switched to over the winter. You guys have been close. He's been really good for you.
Yes.
And people shouldn't judge that or him by what happened here, because this wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
you can tell folks what happened there. With I mean, that was, they did all the things right, and it still happened. So.
Yeah, I mean, like this winter, there's on one hand the parts that were reused.
Yeah.
The block was, obviously we kept the block, we kept the cam, the lifters were even sent out and rebuilt. So I mean, like, the crank was sent back and checked over. It was given a good bill of health.
Yeah.
So like, it's not that we kept a used crank in it, that it was through the rod break last year, and we cut a corner and trying to be cheap or save money, and that bit us. Like, it was checked. It was the motor had new rods, new pistons, new it was completely.
That's got to be the most frustrating scenario you've been through out of all of them, when you figure you and your engine builder have checked all the boxes correctly, and it still happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too, that as to why our funding's down. Like, we took it even further than just the motor.
Yeah.
I put brand new oil pump, brand new fuel pump, brand new oil lines, brand new oil cooler, all new fuel lines.
Yeah.
We replaced. anything and everything that had to do with this motor, even clean down to wiring, gauges, ignition.
Yeah. Fuel lines, everything.
We redid it all. Like all my carburetors went back to be checked and gone over. Like we were trying to make sure that if something like this was going to happen, it wasn't because we didn't do our part.
So let's, you know what, I want to talk about Speed Week and back up a little bit and talk about your year, what there was of it. But before we do that, even you talk about some of the partners who are sticking by you. I think probably mention some of those folks who have really stuck by you and are behind you and just waiting for the stars to align and make this get back in gear here. But
yeah, I mean, it was, you know, we had a lot of new ones come on this year.
Yeah.
Tyler with Tuscarora Restoration.
Right.
You know, we had CarQuest State College.
Yeah.
Diet Right. Autoglass Center.
Right.
You know, and we talked with all those guys, and you know, they're involved. You know, they want to stay involved for next year, and some of them are probably even going to step up their involvement, which is great because I don't really have anything to hang my hat on performance-wise this year to ask for that. So I mean, it just goes to show, you know, when you try to do things the right way and you get involved with good people, you know, that's the kind of support you get, which I'm very thankful to have.
And those are all the local regional businesses who coming up and supporting the hometown guy and all that. And then you've got your bigger partners like SRI and Randy and those folks down there and VP and, you know.
SRI, VP, Junior Veterinary Clinic, you know, the guys that have been with us now a couple years and you know, they all completely understand. They're you know, they've been involved with racing and kind of know how it goes. And you know, and I think that's maybe some of what helps with our support too, is people appreciate the family owned. You know, there isn't much of this, you know, around anymore.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Which goes back to the expense. I mean, it is tough to get into or to get competitive because it's so competitive these days in any division, not just your super late models that you guys run, but you know, the sprint cars, whatever. It's so competitive and every dollar matters.
Yeah, I think if you talk to a lot of guys, you know, especially, you know, at Port Royal especially, like, you may run 15th, but it's probably because you started somewhere between 18th and 13th.
Right.
You know, if you took that same car, same driver, and put them in the front two rows, they're probably going to run in the top 5.
Yeah, exactly.
It is so tough. It is so hard.
It's hard to be better and that much better than somebody to be able to make forward progress in a race.
Yeah, I mean, you can have an extremely good race car, but you got to be dang near perfect. To be able to drive through that field down there. Yeah.
So let's back up. Just you were running Speed Week when this failure happened at Lincoln next to the last night of Speed Week. I mean, you had trudged your way through it despite it not being exactly fun this year. Not as much fun as last year probably. But you know, maybe, you know, just talk about Speed Week a little bit and what that, you know, what those races did and what that does do for you, racing every day like that. That is a big plus.
Yeah, I mean, I think that story's almost kind of twofold. Because this whole year has just been, you know, we were waiting on the motor to get done. And that was just due to not being willing to sacrifice some parts. We could have got what we would have considered lower grade parts sooner. But we just weren't doing it. So we got a delayed start. First laps in the car this year were down at BAPS at I think it was an added Thursday night test session.
That's right.
And I was very confident. I thought like we were pretty good down there. We turned some of the quicker laps of the groups of cars that were there that night, and we come up to Port for the first night out of the year, and we were terrible.
The place where you have the most laps and expect to be comfortable, and it didn't go well.
Terrible. I mean, and we were trying to adjust the car and make changes and do things to get better that night, and it just it was just dead. It wouldn't do nothing. So we come home and found out that, you know, all the front suspension we rebuilt over the winter, the left front lower ball joint was locked up, so there was like a 1/4 inch of travel in the left front suspension. So that kicked the year off great. And then we obviously went down to Bridgeport for the first time ever. And we got all that fixed, got down there, and we were fast. We had the speed that I expected.
Quick time. First time on the track, turns quick time.
Quick time, win our heat race, you know. And we blow power steering lines. It's like So there's 3 power steering lines in the car. I replaced 2. The one I didn't replace was just because it had just previously been replaced the season before.
You had a mid-season issue with it at the track last year. I remember you replacing that.
So I was like, that one's fine. I don't need to replace it. Well, I guess I should have just... The one line I didn't replace.
This is the guessing game they play, folks. Do I spend this money or am I good?
And, when you think about it, it's like, oh, shit, it was
Yeah.
$90.
Yeah.
You should have just done it. Well,
Right.
but like I said, over the winter when I'm talking, I put a whole new oil system like that.
Yeah.
It all adds up. So,
Yeah.
and you think, well, it's got a season on it.
Right.
It's fine.
Right.
So
Right.
it was not. So that took that
Yeah.
away, you know. And then we rolled into to port again, and we ran okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't quite up to what we were hoping for, but we were okay. And then Speed Week started. So we went to Clinton County. I, of course, had high hopes after the
Yeah.
way we run up there last year.
Podium last year. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, we were okay. We weren't
Yeah.
good, but we were okay. We were late in our time trial group, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I think 3
Yeah.
cars before me, Emery went out and set the track record.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
not going to use that as an excuse. But we were late in our group, and
Yeah.
the car just had a weird feeling, and I couldn't diagnose it. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and it took until the heat race, like halfway through the heat race, I'm like, the right front brake caliper's got to be hung up. Like it was just
Yeah.
a weird sensation,
that's what-
but it didn't like pull to the right, but it just had a real
Yeah.
weird feeling. So we come in, and sure enough, I mean, they could hardly turn the right front tire.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Speed Week shows they're not quite as fast paced as a Lucas race, but they're bang bang.
Not a lot of turnaround time. Yeah. Yeah.
So we were starting third in the B main. They were taking 3.
Yeah.
So Dad just cracked the bleeders open quick. You know, that released.
Right.
I hopped in the car, pumped the brake. Everything seemed to be working right. So we went out for the B main,
Yeah.
and we won the B main. We were good, but right at the very end, I could feel it starting. Like it wasn't as bad as it had been, but it was starting.
Okay.
So it's like, well, shoot, now what do we do? So luckily, Ross Robinson was up there, and
Yeah.
you know, him being a Lucas guy, he's got
Right.
basically a spare car.
Yeah.
So I was able to run over and get a caliper off of him, and we changed it, ran the feature. We were good. I mean, track was very technical that night. It was
Okay.
pretty slick. Not a lot of racing room. So I think I started like 19th or 21st or something. We made it to 15th. We were pretty decent.
Yeah.
And then we come to port the next night, and again we were okay,
Yeah.
but we weren't
Yeah.
good.
Right. Yeah.
And the way the Speed Week format is, it's tough. I mean, we run third in our heat race to Rick Eckert and Colton Flinner, but when they lock in that top 6, the third place
Yep.
heat race run isn't good.
Right.
You got
Right.
you got to like
Yeah.
basically win it. So
Yeah.
we started I think we started 19th and finished like 19th.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like you said, being back there and all that dirty air and stuff, it's
it's just it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
yeah, that's very tough.
So then Speed Week went to Hagerstown.
Yeah.
And I'll admit I struggle at Hagerstown. It's not my forte, and that's probably that's the biggest reason I always want to go back. Is like
Yeah.
it's my Achilles heel.
Yeah.
I want to get better there.
Good drivers always talk about, as a quick aside, good drivers always talk about, I want to race more at the places I struggle at because that's how I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
And challenge myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we went down there, and I don't know as though we could have been much worse. Like I was so upset with myself after the heat race because like I didn't do a good job driving. The car wasn't very good. It was just
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
So we come home. We had off Monday. I took off work, and excuse me.
Yeah. You're fine.
And I just started tearing the whole car apart. Like even
Yeah.
though we hadn't raced that much,
Yeah.
I was like, "There's something's wrong,"
Yeah.
and I couldn't find anything. So I got my whole way through the car, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't find nothing. So I moved on the shocks, and I was like, "There's a collapsed spring. Something's wrong." So I ended up getting to our right rear shock that we typically run, and who, how, why, don't know. Shocks were rebuilt over the winter.
Yeah.
The right rear shock had the internals had blew apart. Like I could have handed it to my daughter Hallie, and she could have
Oh.
you know
Yeah.
traveled it in and out. It was just like there was nothing there.
Wow.
So I feel like that was probably a big part of the problem at Hagerstown.
Right.
So then Speed Week went to Path Valley. Went out in hot laps, and we were decent.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think the track's going to come to us for time trials. I'm not changing nothing. And went out for time trials, and I got down the backstretch to go into 3, like on my up to speed lap, and the car just pushed like a dump truck. And I'm there, and I'm like, what in the hell?
Yeah.
we didn't change nothing. It didn't do this in hot laps. Like how?
Yeah.
So I was just so tight. You know, both
Yeah.
laps of time trials,
Right.
and I'm like chomping at the bit, like why?
Yeah. Sure.
So come in, the right rear tire was on the rim. So pulling onto the racetrack,
punctured it or
run
cut it.
over something that knocked a hole in the side. So we time trialed on a flat right rear tire.
I'm just looking for the black cloud. I don't.
You can't make it up. Like
yeah.
When you call me and you're like, well, and I'm like, you can't make it up.
I know it's I tell Austin all the time, it's not funny. I don't want to laugh at it, but we don't know how else to handle it anymore. You just kind of throw your arms up and go.
Yeah.
Murphy's Law. Sooner or later,
It's got to.
you're going to have one banner year.
It's
it's
gotta happen.
just law of averages.
So then that night continued on. We started fourth in our heat race, and the track had kind of migrated to the bottom.
Yeah.
I got the third, and I didn't really know what to do with the race car after time trials because we didn't really know where we were.
Yeah.
So, and I couldn't stick the bottom the way I needed to. So we run 4, start on the pole to B main, won the B main, I'd say fairly handedly.
Yeah.
And we were decent.
Yeah.
So I think I started again like 21st or something.
Yeah.
And in the first 6 or 7 laps, I drove through like up to, I want to say, 14th, 13th.
You were up to 14th. That's right. Yeah.
Pretty decent. And the car started getting this weird sensation again. I couldn't get down the straightaway without like just lighting the rear tires off the thing. And I didn't want to steer in right. Like it just flip of a switch. Ended up figuring out that the 3-wheel brake switch went bad. So we were holding brake pressure on the right front. So, so it is what it is. We fixed that.
Yeah.
And then I did have something happen to me at Selinsgrove then that I've never had happen before. We went out in hot laps, and I took just an old set of just like junk tires just to run in hot laps all through Speed Week. I'm not going to waste the time like cleaning them, grinding them. To around every night of Speed Week, that was 16 laps on a set of tires. So 2 heat races, like just take an old set and don't need to run good stuff in hot laps.
Right.
So we went out with our old junk tires, and we were on the board after hot laps, and I was like, boy, this is like, when's the last time this happened? So I was kind of excited and pumped up, and put brand new tires on to go out for time trials. Come on the racetrack, and I pulled that thing in high gear, and it was shaking so bad that I could hardly see. And I'm like, what? Come on. Like,
am I being pranked at this point? Like, is somebody,
So I was scrambling. I was like, God, like, through the hustle and bustle of Speed Week, did someone grab a bent wheel that was in the back corner of the shop that we just didn't get rid of yet or something? And so I really didn't know what to do. So like after time trials, we were pulling axles out, just looking for anything that's broke, messed up. I didn't find anything, so I just had my dad and them dismount all the new tires, put them on the wheels that we ran in hot laps because that was the only thing I could figure that went out for the heat race, the same thing. And luckily there was some fellow competitors, Larry Bear and a couple people walked by, and it ended up being a right rear tire that from new had a broken belt. It was out around by like 3 inches, so it was shaped like an egg.
And you can't visually.
Yeah, I mean when you were mounting it, you didn't notice it. So like.
What I mean, it's. I mean, I think people get the sense of. I mean, and you've had a couple things like that over the past few years. Yeah, you had some other engine issues and things like that before you upgraded to the Cornet and all that. But I mean, there's just been this string of these very odd, unusual.
Yeah, I don't even. It's not a monkey on our back. It's beyond a gorilla at this point. I don't. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Absolutely. But
the Bedford run out, and then of course Lincoln.
Yeah. So I know I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I mean, we all and it's not a pity party, right? We're really here to explain to folks, just how difficult and all of the little things that have happened, so that they understand. Like you said, if you tried to write all this down, nobody read for more than a minute.
It's way too much to read. It's going to be too much to process.
So just kind of wanted to share it with everybody and have them understand just how hard. And you touched on race nights, not all the late hours in the shop and everything else that go into getting everything ready to have something like that happen. That's a kick.
Well, that's what I said. Like when we doubled down this winter to try and this is probably the other thing that makes all the Speed Week stuff even worse. Like Dad and I were talking right before we had gotten the motor back and we're buttoning everything up about the only things that were left that hadn't been freshened, replaced, repaired was the fuel cell.
Yeah.
Like we had the frame to rock it over the winter, had a couple things fixed up,
Yep.
put a whole new body on it, brand new deck. You know,
Yeah.
we replaced cockpit panels. Like I said, the new gauges. It was brand like the brake caliper deal.
Yeah.
All the brake switch was used.
Right.
Yeah. But like I put brand new brake rotors, calipers, pads on over the winter. Brand new hubs, brand new bearings.
And you guys made that move and that decision to spend that money and do that because of all the little ticky tack things that had happened. You're like, look, let's freshen up our stuff and prevent that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said before, we had made this engine move, thinking, okay, this is the step to get past these gremlin bugs issues we've had the last couple of years, and so I was like, I don't want to, upgrade our engine program and then be breaking rear ends and breaking transmissions. Just like the rear end went to DMI and it was completely gone through. The transmission had been rebuilt. My steering rack was back to Swift and rebuilt. Like,
yeah.
Tried to check every box.
Absolutely.
And it needed to happen. We needed to do it. But that's a lot of our other funding that could have aided us in getting this back together and back going this year went to that. So
and that's the thing. I mean, you guys, you work on that family budget. You're going to spend a certain amount of money every year, but and you're prepared for that, the rebuilds or the things like that, and to invest in new equipment. But then a rebuild followed by a broken motor, 5, 8 race, whatever it was in. That's hard to that's hard to bounce back from quickly because that wasn't in the plans. And I know look, nobody wants to go out borrowing tons of money and going into debt to go racing because you're not going to dig out of that hole. So you try to.
That's just not a smart.
It's not a smart move. Yeah.
Racing strategy.
Right. Exactly. So we'll wrap it up, I think, for now. But like I said, we wanted to kind of just stop in, talk to Austin, and kind of get all this out and share it with people. And
So I mean, like I said,
tell the story.
Unfortunately, you probably won't see the 86 at any of the racetracks anymore this year.
Yeah.
Barring something happening, hitting a scratch off.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, for right now, I mean, if something changes, we'll obviously keep everybody up.
Yeah, stay tuned
in the loop. But for right now, our car's probably done for the year, and we're gonna try and start making some plans to try and come back even better. For next year and do even more. So
well, like you said, stay tuned to Austin Berry Racing on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow Addicted to Dirt PR. We'll have everything also and share it all out, keep folks informed. And if things start to evolve and the storyline changes, or late in the year when we'll stop back in and catch up and see where things are, and hopefully the frowns are upside down and
I've tried to not get too down about it. Well, it's like I told you, when all this happened, I guess they say that you find out how tough you are. Like I've had those thoughts of like,
is it time?
Is it time? Like is it time to quit or is it time to try even harder?
Right.
And I don't know. I don't have it in me to quit. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that personally, and I'm sure a lot of folks are. So anyway, keep those yellow and blue shirts handy, and we'll be back. Matter of fact, you have some of those.
Yeah.
You got some shirts. I think if anybody, hey, a shirt sale helps, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so
at this point, every little bit helps.
Yeah.
We're gathering up scrap outside.
That's right. So anyway, thanks for watching, folks, and following along with Austin, and they'll be back. Stay tuned.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.